you so much for joining us. I'm hoping that more people will join Henlu. I've sent Henlu, you will see Henlu Smith, he's our tech guy. I've sent him a message and said, is there something wrong with Zoom that people perhaps can't get in? I've already introduced Karen to you. We can hear perhaps a little bit more from Karen later. And then Sean, our alumni manager. What I'm going to do is perhaps we're just going to make a start. First of all, I would like both Johan, perhaps to start with Johan, and then ask Sabina to introduce yourselves. Lisby is also there next to Johan, and she's also a Marty. So, it will be really nice if Lisby can also introduce herself. And if you want to keep your cameras on, you're very welcome to do that as well. I'll certainly will keep my camera on, and then we'll see how we go. So just to kick us off, Johan, you and Sabina have kindly agreed to speak to us this evening. Shanti, I think you're the only person that I haven't met between you and Johan, but I have communicated a little bit with Johan by email. So I am the European Director for Alumni Relations here and based here in Brussels. I've been in Europe since we introduced ourselves since 1999. So it's amazing how quickly 20 years can pass, more than 20 years can pass. And I'm also a Marty. I studied more or less when Liesel was studying. And Liesel, I think Johan must be very, very happy to say when you said that you think you're the oldest in the room. Johan, you clearly are like, carrying your years very well. So over to you, Johan and Sabina, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say. Please introduce yourselves.
Yes, thank you, Alison. And as Liesel said, I've got news for you. You're not the oldest in the room. You're at least two people that I know is countering you. It's myself and my wife, right? I graduated from Stellenbosch in 1980 with a degree in electronic engineering. At the same year, in 1980, I got married to Lisby, who was a music student at that stage. And now she's a style coach, but she can tell more about that when she talks about herself. Then we moved to Pretoria, as work for engineers in Cape Town at that time were limited. As a bursary holder from the Department of Post and Telecommunications, I had to work a couple of years for them. I spent 3 years as an engineer in training, working in their laboratories. And then in 1984, I started my career in the defense-related industry when I joined Armscor, which is known as the acquisition agent of the National Defence Force in South Africa. And there I worked for 25 years in many different roles. Project manager, system engineer, program manager of large projects, and also senior manager at one stage, having a group of people that respond to me with line management responsibility. And then in 2009, I was offered a position at Saab, the aircraft company in Sweden, Stockholm. And basically, then we immigrated, and I worked for Saab for 10 years in the capacity as business development manager, marketing and sales, traveling a lot to Brazil, and also for my sons being sent back to South Africa to finish a project there. In 2019, I also qualified as a professional executive business coach and set up my own coaching and consulting company called Plan B. So after 39 years in the corporate world, I still continue my coaching business as a second career. In 2020, we relocated to Portugal, but we returned to Stockholm about 6 months ago. Currently, I provide coaching, mentoring, consulting, and relocation services to clients over the internet. And that's me, Alison. Lisby?
I'm here in an awkward position. Hi, Lisby here. Yes, as he said, I was a music student, a piano student, actually. Never been a teacher. I used to work for the SABC. And then started my family at sort of a late age. So we have the two children now, 30 and 27. And I'm actually a style coach. That was almost style and fashion was always my second love after music. So I'm a style coach. Maybe you haven't heard of kind of a job like that, but it's helping people sort of look better, feel better, get just more from themselves actually comfort, comfort and confidence, and of course having their whole wardrobe and the whole system sort of in an easier, manageable way to help them also and support them basically in their job, if you can say it like that. So it's different. I can do different kind of things, you know, from businesswoman to weight loss or whatever you want to be. And then I'm also I've done a similar course that the brain-based course, coaching course, yeah, as he did. But I'm not international qualified as he is. I'm still focusing actually on my style coaching. So yeah, that's the side.
Thank you, Lisby. We will still have Lisby. If there's any of the, especially the ladies interested, we will still have Lisby as well coming in and speaking to us on style coaching, so on colors and so on. Lots the different. Liesel, dink jy dis 'n goeie idee. Okay, fantastic.
Who said it should only be limited to the woman?
Who say?
Who said it should only be limited to the woman?
That can pretty much so yes, it can be for men as well.
Yeah. You're right.
Okay, and then finally, Sabina, please introduce yourself, and then we're going to move straight into our discussion between you and Johan. But please introduce yourself, Sabina.
With pleasure. Thank you, Alison. Yes, my name is Sabina Paul. I'm based in Berlin, and it's my first alumni event, so I'm very excited to be here and to share with you some discussions, stories, and experience around mentoring. I'm a Stellenbosch alumni, graduated, did my Master of Laws in 2003, which I think is 18 years ago, which seems like an eternity. And of course, besides my Master of Law, I did the Introduction to South African Wines. And the wine diploma seems to impress more of my friends and clients than my law degree does. So I don't know what that should tell me. Well, since I finished my law studies in 2006, I've been working as an employment lawyer in different medium and large-sized law firms all over Germany, also including 1 year as an in-house lawyer. But I didn't like that so much. So I came to KPMG Law. I've heard we have some PwC presence and Ernst & Young. So this is KPMG now, where I am a partner, and I'm responsible for the international employment law and global immigration services team. So I do advise all types of clients in international business, helping them to move their staff around the world, provide them with visa and work permits, international employment contracts, and the like. So it's a very international activity, and it allows me to work really all around the globe, at least virtually, including some colleagues in South Africa, and that always feels like a second home, so it's very nice. Yeah, there are actually several Stellenbosch alumni at my workplace. I'm disappointed to see no one here this evening. I have to catch up with them. But actually one of them turns out to have lived in the same house than I have done in Stellenbosch. But we only found out later because it was different years, of course. So that was a very funny coincidence. And also I have all of my 3 housemates from 2003 now also living in Berlin with their families and kids, so we can meet each other. And we do so at least once a year, and it's always a very great community. And yeah, when I'm not working, I'm a mother of twins. I have twin boys at the age of 3.5, so lots of energy in the house. Some parents around, so you know what it's like, and they're keeping me busy along with my job. And yeah, that's it about me.
Great. So Johan, we're going to just move into that whole discussion that we've already started with Johan in Denmark. Can you just help us understand a little bit when we speak about mentorship, coaching, counseling, and then Johan actually brought it in as well, consulting. Can you just unpack each one very briefly to us, just so that we're clear in our mind what we're talking of, especially this evening if we're going to be speaking about mentorship?
Yes, Alison. In my experience, I often find that people are confused about the services that a mentor, coach, counselor, or consultant can provide. Although there are many overlaps, there are some distinct differences. So briefly, let's look at a simple definition or explanation. Mentoring emphasizes both professional and personal development of the individual, whereas the focus of a coach is to guide others by asking questions and structuring a process for that individual to achieve his or her own defined goals. The goal of counseling is to promote self-understanding and self-acceptance, example, a therapist or something like that. And normally the confusion is not so much about counseling or consulting, but mentoring and coaching. Now, as an engineer, I like talking with pictures. So if I can ask Henry to bring up my first slide, please. If you look at that slide, yes, I can see it. Can everybody see the slide?
Yes, we can.
Okay, this is a very simple slide. Now, on the x-axis, on the left-hand side, it's problem solving. Now, normally counseling and consulting deals with the past. Not always, but they deal with the past. Counseling, if you've got a specific problem that comes from your childhood, the counselor tries to get that out of you. Consulting typically is a tax consultant. There's a specific problem on the table and you employ him or you ask him for help. And the tendency between counseling and consulting, on the one hand, you ask a lot of questions and a consultant normally tells you what to do because you are hiring him for his expertise. On the right-hand side of this diagram, we have coaching and mentoring. Coaching then asks a lot of questions and we are focused on the solution. So we are focusing on get the client somewhere to a defined position in the future. Whereas mentoring normally has to do with you have done it before and you are guiding a junior to make his journey easier. Next slide, please. Enlu. Okay, so mentors, they are normally experienced specialists in a particular field who offer their services and own life experiences and achievement to others. So to be a good mentor, you have to have some knowledge of the field and of the client that you're basically mentoring. Whereas a coach, on the other hand, supports individuals clarifying, identifying, and achieving immediate and future goals for their future growth. And then just the balance on that, consultants is normally a specialist in a particular field who helps others in related professions and organizations to meet a need or achieve a specific goal. And a tax consultant, as mentioned previously, is a very good example. Next question, next slide, Henlu. Now, the majority of confusion normally comes in between coaching versus mentoring. Although there's a lot of overlap, as this slide shows, there are definitely distinct differences as well. The coaching on the left-hand side focuses on skills, knowledge, behaviors, competencies, changing habits, that sort of thing. And normally a coaching assignment is short-term, anything between 2 to 6 months, can be a year, but it's a short-term. Whereas mentoring is a long-term relationship that between the mentee and the mentor. And the purpose of mentoring is to opening up a perspective and horizons for that specific individual. Last slide, Enlu. So, mentoring emphasizes both the professional and the personal development of the individual. And some basic keywords to remember, it's long-term, it's normally an informal relationship, it's development-driven, it's based on loose parameters for growth, It's mostly directive, providing advice and guidance based on your own experience. Usually it's proactive, and generally it's career or role focused. And that, Alison, sums up my brief introduction of the subject. Alison, are you there?
Alison, you're on mute.
Sorry, and there you go. Sorry about that. I'm getting messages into my inbox, and I'm sure you can all hear it when it all comes in. So, Johan, you both a mentor and a coach. So can you give us just an example of somebody coming to you? How would you can give your own example of a problem or issue or a question that they might come to you with. How would you approach this as a coach, and how would you approach it as a mentor?
Yeah, and normally, Alison, before I take on any client, I have a 30-minute session with him, because it's sometimes clients are very clued up and they specifically know what they want. But I find a lot of them don't know what they want. And because there's an overlap between mentor and coaching, you know, the coaching approach is, I don't tell you what to do. I let you speak. I ask powerful questions, but I let you set your own goals, and then I measure you against your own goals. I act as a mirror in the sessions that we have. Whereas if I act as a mentor, the type of clients that I take on are clients that are worked in the companies that I work for, or are in the same occupation that I am in, so that I know of experience moving through the ranks of an engineer, as an example, in my case, from the different roles that I played, and eventually as an engineer, which was strange to me, ending up in marketing. I never thought in my life when I studied at Stellenbosch that I would end up in marketing, but that's where I ended up. And that is not a strange journey, but it can happen. So yes, I feel the client, and I tell him in the conversations, because as I'm a professional coach, the coaching associations are very strict that when you coach, thou shalt not mentor. But sometimes there's an overlapping question that comes from the client, and then I tell the client, I'm now taking off my coach hat and I'm putting in my mentor hat, and I'm telling you from my past experience what would be the best alternative choice to make whatsoever. But so briefly, that is how I approach new clients, Alison.
Now, Sabina, you have an interesting experience, because, of course, you are working in a company that actually has its own mentorship program. And afterwards, we're also going to see with others, perhaps, just, you know, we would be interested to know if there are others who are in companies where there are sort of in-house mentorship programs. And can you tell us a little bit about your experience with this program, and the role that you've played, what it has brought to you? And also perhaps, have you been a mentee and a mentor? Can you sort of just tell us about those experiences as well?
You're on mute, Sabine.
Classic. I'm happy to share some of my experience both as a mentee and a mentor. And I've actually tried various programs that exist at KPMG, both formal and informally. So the first time I came across mentoring was at my first year at KPMG, which was still fairly early in my career. And it was a mentoring program designed for junior professionals to find their way basically through the career jungle at KPMG and climb their way up the ladder and find out about different career paths and things like that. And I actually felt very lost in that process. I didn't really have a very intense relationship with my mentor, and it really didn't end up well, because he then left the company and he basically left me behind as a mentee, and it was one big disappointment. So my first experience with mentoring actually was a disaster, to say the least. But reflecting about it, I also wasn't ready, and I never had that introductory session that Johan just spoke about. So I was just thrown into the water of mentoring, but didn't know what it was all about. And that's why I really didn't really get any benefit out of it. And for a long time, I was very skeptic about the concept of mentoring and people telling me what to do. So that was the first time. Then actually I was given a second opportunity to join a mentoring program much later, when I was close to becoming or joining the senior grading track, as we call it, just before you have the opportunity to either become a partner or a director. So after a few years of professional experience. And that was called Power Mentoring. It was a one-year program designed for female employees who were considered as emerging leaders. And this was supposed to be the boost to really help us to make the next step and hopefully become promoted as partner. And that was actually a very formally set up program with an introductory session, what it was all about, what the expectations were to mentors and also to mentees. We were matched with different mentors to see if we really had somebody that we trusted and that we could work with well. And I felt it was very well organized. I could see the purpose, and of course they could only give the framework, and we then had to fill it with content, but that worked much better. And it really impressed me. But well, not actually while I was in it, but much later, I realized how much I actually took out of it. And I mean, sometimes it was a painful experience because I noticed there was still a long way to go and so many things to learn. And it was much more than I actually thought it was. It was an intense program besides the normal professional job that I had, but it was a really interesting journey, and I had a mentor who I could really trust, and I mean, we're still in touch many years after the program has finished. And I think it's one of the key factors that Johan has mentioned. It's actually a long-term concept, and I know of many mentoring relationships that actually survive the mentoring program, and I think it's something very nice. So what I took out of that actually was that even though a mentor is somebody who gives you guidance and tells you something and does not only ask questions like a coach does, you're still responsible on your own to define what you want to take out of it and what your actual goal is. And so it's not really the mentor doesn't do the job for you. So you still have to do it yourself. And so it's hard work, but it was really rewarding and gave me some very valuable impulses. And I mean, finally, I did make it to partner. I was promoted. I'm sure it wasn't just because of the mentoring program, but it certainly helped me to focus, to really know what I want, and to also present that. So I was very enthusiastic about that. And Alison, I think you have another question, right?
Yeah. So that was your time as a mentee,
right?
And at what stage did you think to yourself, "Oh, but now I can become a mentor to somebody"? When did that kind of switch come?
That's actually only recently. I think like 3 years ago. It's another program that my company has set up in the, oh, now it's getting dark in my office. Somebody's turning the lights off. It's a program in the corporate social responsibility department. And we were given the chance to work with highly qualified refugees to mentor them finding a job placement in Germany. So for about, I would say 6 to 8 months, I worked with a Syrian refugee who was stuck in Saudi Arabia. Of course, that was an online mentoring program. And I helped that person to prep her application her motivation letters, her CV. We practiced job interviews. I gave her information on the German job market and how everything works over here. And I was kind of a teacher, or could give guidance to her, really how to find her way and actually apply for jobs in Germany. She still hasn't been successful, but we've come a long way with all the different application formats and the ways that motivation letters are written in Germany and things like that. So that was a very interesting experience. And then actually rather informally, it turned out that since I was only the third female partner at KPMG Law at the time of my promotion, I really wanted to support other junior lawyers with their different career ambitions. And I opened up to the topic, and it actually happened by accident, more or less, that people turned to me for advice and asked me questions and wanted guidance on how to make a career at KPMG. So now I would say I have about 3 to 4 individuals at different stages in their professional life who turn to me regularly and want to discuss and ask questions. And I'm kind of an informal mentor to them without any program around it. So I find that quite interesting because it kind of happened naturally.
Before I turn to Johan again, I was just wondering, Sabina, at the stage where you are now, you are partner at KPMG, well, let's just say that you're in a very good position. Do you actually still have mentors, or do you people that you would regard as mentors?
Definitely, because I think you can always learn, and your personal growth has never finished. And as Johan pointed out initially, it's about professional development, but also personal development. So I think lifelong learning is key. And a particular program that we also have at my company, which I find really interesting, is called reverse mentoring. And it actually means that a junior teaches a senior. And I mean, normally from the old-fashioned definition of mentoring or old-fashioned interpretation, it's usually a senior giving and sharing experience and providing guidance to a junior person. But reverse mentoring works the other way around, as the term says. So how it works is that we have a group of very young professionals, usually in their very early 20s, sometimes interns or research students or very young professionals. And they mentor the older ones like me or older colleagues on topics that they have more experience in. So, for example, everything that turns around new work, new models of collaboration, technology, the use of social media. So I actually signed up for this as well, and I wanted to come my hesitation to work with new technologies and apps. For example, I grew up as a dinosaur with like a pen and a piece of paper, so I still can only turn my TV off and not on because I don't like it. So I'm very old-fashioned, and but of course in the modern business world I have to play along if I want to be successful. So I was matched with a 20-year-old new joiner who taught me a lot about technology, different tools that we use at KPMG, LinkedIn, but you can still see my LinkedIn profile is far from being complete. So that was a very interesting experience, because actually, who says that you can only learn from older people or more senior people? So I do like the concept a lot, because the younger generations can just teach us so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sabina. I found the part about the reverse mentoring. I think that is something that we can definitely explore with the alumni office as well. Johan, what about you? Your experiences as a mentee and as a mentor, because you said you also had a couple of mentors in your life.
Yes, definitely, Alison. During my 39 years in the corporate sector, I had many mentors and many played mentee to many people. Now, just like Sabina, my first experience with mentoring was not so great. I started as a youngster at Armscor. There was a formal mentor program driven by HR, but maybe I did not understand the purpose of mentoring then. I was too young, and it was driven by HR, and I thought it was too structured. And I didn't go with the program, and it was also not very successful. But then at a very young age, for an engineer, I got promoted into a managerial role. And as you know, historically, engineers don't learn a lot about managing people and people skills at university. It's all technical stuff. So I was thrown into the deep end of the pond. And it's here that I started to choose informal mentors for myself. In other words, the company did not match me with somebody. I chose somebody that I wanted to be my mentor. Sometimes they knew they were my mentors, and sometimes I just followed them and I didn't even know they were a mentor. And my experience was that a mentor does not always have to be your line manager. It can be somebody parallel to you. It can even be somebody outside of your organization. I had more than one mentor at the same time. You don't only have to have one mentor. You can have them simultaneously. And in the period that I had these mentors, it definitely accelerated my career. I was promoted, like Sabina, rapidly through the ranks as a youngster. And I definitely subscribe some of that due to the mentor-mentee relationships that I had with people that eventually become your friends. And now, just like, but then I moved on from line management, and at one stage I was asked just before I left Armscor the last 5 years to structure a division that had, it was called system engineering, but it actually had to do coaching and mentoring, not only to individuals, but to project teams. And this I found very interesting because in my previous years, I had managed many large project teams and had many people reporting to me. But now I was given the task with a couple of people to give guidance to the youngsters, the young project managers, and the way that project teams work in Armscor. There's normally somebody from Armscor and there's somebody from in uniform from the Defence Force. They form a team. Sometimes the uniform guy does not have a lot of experience in project management. So we have to guide and to consult and to mentor them. And I found that very stimulating. When I joined an international company in Saab here in Sweden, I also had what you call the reverse role experience. I had a unique opportunity to mentor two of my superiors, primarily in the cultural differences between South Africa and Swedes. For those of you Europeans that know and understand the Swedes, you know that their body language, talking from a marketing point of view, is not that good, and they do not understand the cultures of different people. And if they become very senior, they become too afraid to ask. So I had the unique experience of mentoring my superiors, and that to me was very challenging. And the same happened. I had to do a lot of marketing for Saab in Brazil, and they chose me because the Swedish way of marketing was not that good, and the Brazilians have got a warm climate, a hearty climate, and they are, and you cannot approach them the Swedish cold way. You've got to be warm-hearted. You've got to understand their things. And similar to South Africans, you just don't start with the marketing in the first session. You start with how is your wife, how is your kids, similar to South Africa. And my Swedish colleagues just couldn't stand that, couldn't understand that. So I had to then again mentor some of the project teams coming in, trying to sell their products in Brazil. And that was also very stimulating. At first, they didn't want to listen to my advice, but eventually they saw that it actually works. So in a nutshell, Alison, that's my brief highlights.
Wonderful. I think we can perhaps draw our evening to a close. Thank you so much for your time this evening. I'm going to say again, not only to Sabina and Johan, a big thank you to you, but also to our participants. We've gone over our allotted time, but you're still here. So I think you would agree with me that it's been a very thought-provoking conversation that we've had this evening. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. We will be continuing with our online offering probably going into 2022. So if you have any other topics that you would like to discuss, please let me know. If you would like to continue this conversation, we can also do another session on mentorship. Next week, specifically for the South Africans who still have some money, property, inheritance in South Africa, there will be a talk that will focus specifically on expat tax, so that you are welcome to join. That is still open for registration. And then we will also have our last Marty's Wine Club on the 19th of November for the European audience. And we've invited Simonster. They've agreed to share their beautiful wines with us. So you are very welcome to join that as well. For the rest, we have in-person events. Apologies. In Europe, we're going to be in Brussels, in Denmark, and in Sweden, beginning of November. And then we'll be in Germany, in Munich, Berlin, and Frankfurt, mid-November. So we hope that for those of you who are living anywhere close to those cities or in those cities, that you will join us. For the rest, again, thank you very much. Have a good night's rest. Thank you for all the stimulating, for this very stimulating conversation. And I look forward to actually continuing that conversation. Yeah, that's all from my side. Thank you so much. And good night to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye from Stockholm.